So, Asna, you head up the Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves efforts in Bangladesh. And I'm wondering if you could start us off this morning for this conversation with a description of the issue. Tell us more about what this whole conversation about clean cooking means and the goals of the Alliance.
So cooking is like an integral part of our lives, right? So we either eat to live or live to eat. Fortunately, millions around the world still don't have access to a clean cook stoves or a clean fuel to cook. And they rely on traditional cook stoves and fuels, which cause immense health and environmental impacts. You know, just to give some statistics, 3 million people still rely on traditional stoves and fuels, and which causes immense health problems like pneumonia, asthma, even lungs cancer.
You're talking about people's culture and their livelihood and how they do things. So how do you go about that in a place like Bangladesh where you're actually thinking about how do we get people to take on this challenge in a kind of a behavior change communications type of model?
I think it's extremely challenging, to be honest. And in a country like Bangladesh, there's almost 30 million households who do not have access to a clean cooking solution. But cooking is something that's so integral to their tradition and culture. Women in villages in Bangladesh, they build their own stoves. It's a matter of pride that I have made my own mud stove. So you can't go into her house and tell her that the stove you're using is kind of killing you, So, they will be like, what are you saying? I made this out of love and passion. So you really have to think about changing their behavior, and that is what the Alliance has been trying to do. The Alliance has a market-based approach, and we have started our behavioral change communication work from 2015. And in 2016, we did a couple of small-scale campaigns in different countries, including Bangladesh. And the goal was really to show people that there are different solutions that you can use, which will solve this problem. But the challenge, again, there is that different country cooks different kind of food. So that, has a different kind of fuel. Some countries like, Ghana, Kenya, you will see charcoal used a lot. You go to India and Bangladesh, you will see a lot of wood fire and cow dung being used. So you need to really customize the solution that you're giving and the kind of messages and promotion work that you're going to do.
So, really helpful overview. I'm wondering if you can take a bit of a deeper dive. I know you've been doing recently a campaign where you're actually out in communities and really trying to get people involved in learning more. Can you tell us a little bit about that and some of the results you've seen?
So, over years, health was the major focus for promoting cook stoves. It's not that, the Global Alliance for the first time is doing cook stoves. There were projects and programs even before. That has been going on for years, from 1980s and all. But health was the major focus for most of those campaigns. So when we started our behavioral change communication work, we did a lot of studies and group sessions and tried to understand really what inspires a consumer in the village of Bangladesh to buy something. With that minimum income, how would they really spend $15 or $10 on a stove? It really has to have the demand pull. And that is what we tried to create in all of these markets that we did these campaigns, really create that pull for cook stoves. So in Bangladesh, it was very interesting that we see that the economy is growing at a fast rate, about 6%, 7% GDP growth rate. So everyone is aspiring to be modern, and everyone wants to be cool and have access to new technologies, and just go with the flow of globalization, I guess. So we started doing a lot of studies, and what we found is how we can really position cook stoves as an aspirational product. So what we tried to tell the consumers is, times have changed, change your stove. So you're being modern, you're using a smartphone, you have, new technologies in your homes, you're wearing new clothes, but your kitchen and the way you're cooking is still, really, really old-fashioned. So why don't you change that, and that will benefit your family and the community as well. And the results were quite amazing. We did this campaign in Bangladesh for 3 months. We did a lot of street theaters, mobile cinema shows, mobile SMS, fairs, and sales went up. We saw almost 60% of sales going up, and another about 50% of the population said that they had a higher intention to purchase a stove in the next 3 or 4 months.
Excellent, thank you. I love this idea that, I mean, working in the nonprofit sector, the cause sector, and for an NGO, that it's important to think about reaching people, not necessarily because it's good for you, but because it's the thing that makes you cool or modern or hip and brings you to a new culture is an interesting, very interesting. So Rocky, if you could talk a little bit about how you've seen your voice in the way that you've used your platform to talk to people. How have you seen it help change this issue and the way people are thinking about it and talking about it?
Well, for me, the thing is that we all have the ability to be instruments of change, and I think that all of us, creative folks here, in my tradition in Africa, we believe that when you're given a gift and you're able to use that gift for something higher than yourself, like impacting other people's lives, then you leave a legacy, of impacting, social change. So for me, the greatest legacy I can leave is how I affect other people's lives. And in every day, in my music, in my, when even I'm in a place to do a concert, I try as much as possible to find the space to engage the community one way or the other and try to point to them everybody's obligation to their community. And in doing so too, I open the way for other people to ask me about the things that I'm interested in so that I can be able to communicate back to them. So it's a matter of all of us, stepping up to the plate and understanding that if we put our talents to helping elevate our community in the long run, we elevate the rest of the world.
Asna, you talked a little bit about some of the work in Bangladesh and going into communities. Can you walk us through that? I know I have not been a part of a campaign like that. I'm guessing a lot of people in the room haven't. What does that look like? How do you talk about some festivals and fairs as a way to reach people, and then you also had some data points that if you could maybe walk us through how those actually changed some of the perceptions, but just paint a picture for us. What does that look like, and how do you go about measuring those data points?
To begin with, when we started designing the campaign, we had to come up with of course, campaign look and feel and campaign name and all that. So it was very interesting because everything was kind of evidence-based. So we had to, collect data from the field and then do pre-testing and all that. So the campaign was called Modern Stoves, and the tagline was "Times have changed, change your stove." And it targeted both male and female, because in Bangladesh, the males actually have the decision-making power because they are mostly the bread earners. So we were talking to both men and women, but probably had different messages for the two groups. So for instance, in the mobile movie that we showed, who is a modern man? Is it someone who wears fancy clothes and has an iPod and listens to music and is very cool? Or is it someone who's he's doing good in his life and also takes care of his families, And we tried to show the relationship of two brothers in that movie, and we also had the problem that the family was facing in their kitchen, and how the older brother buys a new stove, and they have the mother has more time now to spend with her family and all that. We also did a lot of street theaters, which were like colorful folk music, kind of local music and local cultural street theater. And then we did a lot of fairs, which all these stove manufacturers, they participated in the fairs, and consumers could come and buy the stoves and see the stoves, and there were a lot of demonstrations. Because one of the things that we are seeing increasingly is that when consumers actually look and see the products, kind of do a test, they get more interested to buy them, because otherwise this is kind of technology that people are not aware of, as of yet. A lot of people don't know about improved cook stoves yet. So when you show them how it works, you make them more interested. We also had a lot of support from the government in Bangladesh, and we were very lucky that they sent out this free SMS, all over Bangladesh. About 15 million people received that SMS, which basically endorsed the campaign. And they shared like the helpline number and the Facebook link on that message, and told people that you should use a modern stove to, for better livelihood of your mother and families. And that really did give a big boost to the entire campaign, and there was like a lot of phone calls on our helpline, and severe flow in the social media as well. And we also did like a lot of videos on social media. We did like interactive conversations. People could also place an order of a stove on the social media, and we did do quite a good number of sales through that channel as well. So I think overall we used different channels to reach the audience. And then we did some surveys to understand how this is working. So we did and pre and post event surveys. So when consumers or households would come to say a fair, we would ask them how much do you know about modern stoves? Do you know about the health impacts of cooking in traditional stoves and all that? There was a very short 5 or 6 questions. And then after, when they were leaving the fair, we would ask them again. So, what do you know about modern cook stoves now? And we saw almost like a 90% increase in awareness and knowledge about this technology. And then we also collected mobile numbers from the door-to-door visits that we did, or from these fairs. And then after the campaign, we made a survey and we called all these numbers and asked them, have you bought a stove? What did you think about the campaign? Or do you have a complaint about the campaign or the product? Even, there were some obviously issues about, the after-sale service was not good. Or I ordered a stove a week back, I don't have it yet. So there was issues, of course, working on the supply side is another angle altogether. But I think overall there was a lot of increase in knowledge, and there was a lot of intention to purchase in the stoves.
Excellent, thank you. So really interesting to think about. You've got a cultural challenge to overcome, that you've got people who have literally made their own stoves, and then you're trying to educate them that maybe this actually isn't the best option for you and your family. Trying to overcome that barrier through really an integrated campaign. It sounds like you have films, you're out in communities doing community activations, SMS that broadcast to a major portion of the population of the country, social media integration, and then you're also measuring all that. How you think about yourself and why this cause matters so much to you, how you've internalized that and how that's part of who you are?
Well, for me, the thing is, it comes from my intention to make a difference. My mission to use my music to really impact people's lives and also be an instrument of social change, So the cook stove concept for me works right within that philosophy, So it makes it much more, when I go into, the community, or I'm on stage or through my social media, it's something that really feeds into the philosophy of what I'm trying to project in the world, And I think that people too, because I come from a position where I believe in what I do, and I think that I jump on issues because I believe that I can be able to contribute that. So with my work with the cook stoves, it really cuts across as an authentic voice that is really pushing across an issue that is really real, and that I believe makes people pay attention to it.
Maybe we'll probably close here with this question, looking at the time, but as people leave, what can they do? How can people here today help and support the work that you're doing or the work of the Alliance?
I think we have reached a point where in 2017 iPhones have become a necessity. And yesterday when I was at the awards show and looking into some of those brilliant campaigns, I was just seeing campaigns for Alzheimer, pneumonia, anti-smoking campaigns and all that. And I was thinking that we need one of those for clean cooking, And that is, I think, what we need from the people in this room. I mean, this is the creative mind. This is where it all happens. And we need these creative, fresh ideas to come into the sector. Because at the end of the day, it is really about creating that awareness and creating the pull for the products. Whether it's a social good, whether it does a lot of great impacts on humanity. But at the end of the day, your consumers really have to want that product and buy it and use it at their homes. And I think that is where this group of people can really work for this cause and help us reach out to the consumers and those households more.
Thank you very much for being here today. Huge thanks to Rocky Dawani and Asna Taufik for their great insights. And thank you.
I'm Julia Roberts. Did you know that one of the deadliest threats facing women and their families around the world today is right inside their own home? Would you believe that the simple act of cooking is responsible for 2 million deaths globally each year? This is because close to 3 billion people still rely on solid fuels, such as wood, to cook their food every day. When burned in open fires, these types of fuels emit a toxic smoke that fills homes and communities the world over. The good news is that there are solutions to address it, and I am proud to be part of an organization promoting the adoption of clean cook stoves and fuels for 100 million households around the world by 2020. The Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves is working with its hundreds of partners to save lives, improve livelihoods, empower women, and combat climate change by creating a global market for clean cooking solutions. Clean cook stoves change lives. We can clean indoor air, reduce pollution and harmful emissions, and enable women and their children to live better lives. Join me in making this goal a reality.